All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on something you probably think you know, anthropology. But we're going to look at its surprising and, let's be honest, pretty complicated history in colonial India, where the study of people had a very different goal than you might imagine. Okay, so when you hear the word anthropology, this is probably what comes to mind, right? The pure scientific study of human societies, a noble quest for knowledge and understanding. But here's the question that really gets to the heart of our story today. What if, at this specific time and in this specific place, the goal wasn't just about understanding, but about controlling? What if this field of study was actually built for power? To get our heads around that, we've got to go back to the British Empire in India. I mean, think about it. Ruling over hundreds of millions of people was a massive challenge. For them, knowledge wasn't just some academic hobby, it was the ultimate tool for governance. And this right here, this quote from Denzel Ibbotson, a top colonial administrator, it just says it all. He's not talking about celebrating cultural complexity. He's saying that to govern a place effectively, you have to make society simple. That reveals the whole mindset, right? It was incredibly practical and, frankly, all about reducing complexity. And this wasn't some big secret. The men leading this work, people like H. Risley and William Crook, were literally known as official anthropologists. Their mission was spelled out for everyone to see, contribute to science, but, just as importantly, make British rule more efficient and more secure. So what did they need to know? Well, basically everything. Imagine being an administrator trying to run a local court. You're constantly getting hit with incredibly complicated social questions. A ruling on who inherits what could come down to some obscure local tradition. So to rule, they felt like they had to become the absolute experts on the inner life of every community. This need to know everything led to an absolute obsession with classification. They set out to create a complete map of Indian society, to chart its internal structure, almost like it was a biological specimen they were dissecting in a lab. And this table perfectly illustrates how they did it. This is H. Risley's system. Just look at how they tried to organize this incredibly complex society into these rigid, scientific-looking boxes. You've got subcastes who marry within their group, and they're categorized by ethnicity or where they live. Then you have sections who marry outside their group, categorized by animal emblems or the saint they were named after. It was this massive project to impose a neat, legible order on a deeply fluid reality. So their study really had two main parts. First, as we've seen, was mapping all the social stuff, the tribes, the castes, all of it. But the second part, and this is so critical, was actually measuring the physical characteristics of people. This wasn't just about culture anymore. It was about creating racial categories and hierarchies, often using things like the shape of someone's nose to justify their theories about social status. So how did this whole classification system actually work in practice? And just how arbitrary could it be? Well, let's dive into the case of animism. The term animism pretty much became a catch-all category. For colonial officials in India, it was a super convenient label for all the diverse beliefs of tribal communities that just didn't fit into their neat little box for Hinduism. It was, simply put, another box to put people in. Wow, this slide is just stunning. It lays the whole conflict bare. On the left, you've got the official, L.J. Sedgwick, just casually mentioning how a census commissioner relabeled 70,000 people from Hindu to animist with a stroke of the pen. Just like that. But then on the right, you have Reverend Hedberg, who is actually working among the Bill people, and he's saying, hold on a minute, all these people call themselves Hindus. It would be an insult to tell them they're anything else. This just shows the enormous gap between the colonial filing system and people's actual identity. So what's the lasting impact of all this? This history left a really complicated legacy, for sure, but the story doesn't stop there. And what happened next is fascinating. By 1930, Indian scholars like Jal Feroz Bulsara here started to see a totally new use for this scientific study of man. They argued that anthropology was essential, not for colonial control, but for nation building, for purposive planning to solve India's problems as it moved towards independence. The tool was being completely repurposed. And that leaves us with one final big thought. That drive to classify, to measure, and to put people into neat boxes didn't just disappear with the empire. So how do the categories we all use today, in government, in society, even in our own minds, how do they still echo this colonial past?
It's a powerful reminder that the act of naming and classifying is never ever as simple as it seems.